At the risk of just sounding like I escaped from a padded cell, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume I'm not the only one that does this, where you brainstorm this absolute ridiculous fantasy about what you would do in a perilous situation. How would you stop a criminal if you had to, right? So you're out at a restaurant, you start like looking around, and for some reason you just play through this fanfic in your head of, what if a bad guy comes in with a bazooka? What's the protocol? How do I save the day and keep everyone alive? And, whatever. Everyone plays out this hero fantasy in their head, I think. And today, I saw a news story where I have no doubt the main character here had this envisioned in his head since the time he was a child and actually got to pull it off successfully. There was a criminal on the loose, and he was apprehended by the most unlikely of suspects. Like, I would have been less shocked if it was Captain fucking Underpants that caught this guy than who it actually was. A golfer. A dude just casually out there chugging some brewskis with the boys on the front nine ended up catching a criminal in one of the wackiest ways I've ever seen.
Police cars pour onto a golf course. They're going after a suspected bad guy. But no need to hurry. He's trapped in a porta potty.
We couldn't believe that he went inside there.
I can't believe this isn't a skit. It's real. This is legitimate. Life sometimes imitates cartoons. So, what happened is, I'll let the rest of the news segment play in a moment, but I want to break down the cliff notes. A criminal was running away from authorities, and he tried to hide inside of a porta potty for cover, basically playing it like a stealth game, where you're trying to de-aggro by going inside of something like in Assassin's Creed where you dive into some hay. He went into a porta potty. One of the golfers saw this and also saw the authorities were looking for him and took this as his moment of opportunity to strike. So all his neurons were firing and he came up with a genius scheme here where he would tip over the porta potty and trap him inside. And for anyone that's been around the internet for a while, you'll know that this was actually like a nefarious, like downright evil thing that some people would do to strangers in porta potties where they would tip it over, it would land on its door and it would trap them in there and it'd cause all like the poop and pee and everything in the porta potty to splash around on top of them. Absolutely degenerate, I think, criminal prank. But here, he took something truly awful and turned it into a force of good. So he tips over the porta potty, causes it to fall on its door, meaning the criminal that's on the run is now trapped inside that porta potty. But not only that, all the contents from inside the porta potty are now all over him. So he's covered in all kinds of shit and piss. Like, he probably contracted more diseases than the Oregon Trail. Like, this man's probably got dysentery and fatal fart disease now from this. Like, he added insult to injury by not only catching him, but covering him in toilet waste. It couldn't be worse. That is a fate worse than just going to prison. Being trapped in a porta potty you can't get out of. Oh my lord, it is so revolting.
The bizarre case starts when a stolen car crashes outside Milwaukee. 4 people inside take off. There goes one, then another, then the third, then the fourth. Cops say one of the bad guys ran to the golf course. Not exactly a great place to hide with all that wide open space. So what'd he do? He jumped into a porta potty. Fortunately, a golfer saw what was happening and tipped the porta potty over.
I can just picture this scene playing out in my head. The guy who tipped the porta potty over, our savior, his name is Adam. So he sees the criminal run into the porta potty and he immediately gets to thinking, it's time to start stinking. He gets a big smirk on his face, slowly sets the 5-iron back in the golfing bag. He was about to hit a spectacular shot, eagling the par 5, but he says, it can wait. I've got business to tend to. And then just fucking sprints over and blasts the porta potty over, trapping him inside. This guy obviously knew that he had to tip it over onto the door. This is a guy who was familiar with that old awful prank people used to do, and he turned it into a force for good. That's crazy.
Golfer Alyssa Boland was there.
He made a quick decision to tip it over, walked away and said, good luck, buddy.
You can just imagine what happened next. The suspect found himself trapped inside.
Don't let this deceive you. Don't get it twisted. This was after the suspect had been apprehended, so they had pushed the porta potty over, so that way the door was on its side so he could climb out. But when it was initially tipped over, it was on the door, so there was no escape. He was truly at the mercy of whoever would come to free him from this fucking fate worse than death, being trapped in a porta potty with everything sloshing around on you. And I think it is so badass that the guy who did it didn't stick around to give an interview or anything. He just pushes it over, apparently said, "Good luck, buddy," and left. He just sailed off into the sunset, held his head up high and said, "I did good today." Like, he wanted no part of any kind of fame or glory or recognition for this. He didn't want the keys to the city. He just wanted to go back to finishing his game. He probably still went and eagled that par 5.
Back at the clubhouse, a police officer commandeers a golf cart and drives over to the porta potty. The cops roll the porta potty over so the suspect can get out.
Come out! Crawl out, dude!
Then he states the obvious. He's not exactly smelling of roses.
Don't do anything stupid!
One cop puts on gloves before he goes anywhere near the suspect. Hey, wouldn't you?
Are you injured at all?
I'm just scratching my foot.
I will say, at least he didn't have to spend that long stewing in all the juices of the porta potty. He wasn't in there for that long. Like, this didn't become like a sarcophagus form where he's in there for like hours upon hours or anything. He was there for a little while. Even still, of course, it's awful, but he did have another thing working in his favor in terms of this porta potty in particular. It's on a golf course, so I can't imagine that it's that full. Like, it probably wasn't at maximum poop capacity or anything. Like, there was probably only a little bit of shit and pee in there. It probably wasn't crazy. If this had been a porta potty at like EDC Music Festival or Coachella, you would have went straight to heaven the second the cursed fluids inside of that porta potty touched your skin. If you were in one of those porta potties that got tipped over, it would have sent you to meet your maker. It probably would have melted you instantly. It would have been like that scene in Indiana Jones when they open the Ark of the Covenant and everyone's fucking flesh just starts melting off of them and they die instantly. That would have been what happened with one of those porta potties. So it definitely could have been worse in terms of porta potty selection. This porta potty seems to be in the middle of nowhere on a golf course. I imagine it wasn't a high traffic area. It probably wasn't seeing a ton of action. If I had to get tipped over in a porta potty, I would probably want it to be this one. Like, I'm going out on a limb here. This could be an absolute catastrophe in there. I'm really not sure. We didn't get like an aftermath report where they do like a tour of what the porta potty looked at after it was tipped over. But I'm just giving it the old eyeball test here. I didn't see a ton of like horrifying things in the porta potty for the brief moment we caught a glimpse of it. So I don't think it was the worst in the world. There's definitely worse porta potties it could have been. Of course, I'm sure he's still not happy about the situation. Like, like definitely still horrifying, but you know, there's definitely more disastrous porta potties to be tipped over in. I'm getting a little sidetracked. What a crazy way of apprehending a runaway criminal here from someone who just happened to see the whole thing unfold and have this opportunity to help by pushing over a fucking porta potty. Like, the simplest thing ever from, like, old internet days of the worst pranks ever, and it actually ended up being helpful. And then the guy, the dude who tipped it over, has just vanished. He said, "I'm done here. This is my legacy now." And that's it. So just a wacky situation I wanted to cover a little bit. That's it. See ya.